Welcome to our Devos this week where we're talking about dealing with the father wound. The wounds that were inflicted on us early on as a result of our childhoods, or if we are dealing with mistakes that we've made. How do we get past that? How do we get to a different level in our lives when we're struggling so much with dealing with our past? Well, we have to be willing to confront the father wound. Now, some of us, maybe you grew up without a father, or maybe your father was less than admirable. Remember, if you were sitting here and like, oh, I'm embarrassed about the dad that I had, just remember, if you look through the scriptures in the Old Testament, you'll see very few examples of fathers that did the right thing. There's almost none. So it just shows you that when it comes to making mistakes, we're in good company. But on top of that, it also shows you what God is able to do with men and women who have yielded completely to Him, what He can do in their lives. So today, if you would say, hey, you know what? I didn't really have a good example growing up. I didn't really have a good father growing up. I got a suggestion for you. I want you to pick a mentor. Pick a mentor. Now, don't let this intimidate you. Let's stick with me to the end because I'm going to give you some tips on this. Let's say you don't have a father. Now, my father, before he went on to the Lord, my father, he made his peace with God. He became a God-fearing person. He cared about Jesus, cared about my family. Like the father that I knew that passed away was not the father that raised me for the majority of my life. It was a different person, and that's all because of Jesus. So I'll say that I was blessed beyond measure. But for the majority of my life, I remember thinking, I felt like I got gypped. Like I didn't have that dad that shows you stuff. You know what I'm talking about? A dad that shows you things? Like I always say, I took my son to the woods and I showed him how to hunt. I didn't have that. I took my son, on a job and I showed him how to fix stuff. Or I didn't have that. Or my dad was always really good with money and he showed me how to manage money. Well, I didn't have any of that. So the things that I was doing early on in my life, I was doing on my own. But I got a little secret. I picked a mentor. Now, I was super blessed because Pastor Mike is like my spiritual father. He's the one that kind of showed me how to live, how to be a husband, how to provide, how to work, those types of things, like the priorities. He taught me how to have a relationship with God. Like he's built into my life for 2 decades. And so anything that you see that's good in me as a result of some of the things that you see me doing, if you see anything, you're like, I haven't seen anything good in you, Sam. Well, ask someone. Maybe they saw something. I don't know. But if you didn't, that's okay because he's built into me. And early on, I knew, okay, God put him there as my mentor. But here's the secret. I picked a bunch of other mentors from the church. You might be my mentor and you don't even know it. Here's what I'll do. And I've done this with so many men and women in the church where I will start talking to someone about something that's going well, and I'll start asking them questions like, well, there's a family, and I'll give you a perfect for instance. There's a family in the church, really, really wonderful, wonderful family. Their kids are all together. The kids love being together. The kids get along. The kids all love the Lord. The kids love the parents, and I am planning on taking them out or having them in the office, so they might not want to go out with me. It doesn't matter. But I want to sit down, I want to interview them, and I want to ask them, like, well, how did you get that? How do you get kids that want to come home? How do you get kids that want to go on vacation with you after they're 18? Like, how do you get kids that get excited about family functions? Like, how did you get that? Because I see a lot in the church where kids are like, once I'm home, once I'm out of the house, I'm gone, right? So I look at other people and what they do, and they become my silent mentors. Like, we don't have a formal relationship, but I'm looking at what they're doing, and I'm like, I want to do that. I could do that. You might want to do this with fitness, getting in shape. Look for someone in your life that is doing well, a man or a woman, and you're like, hey, I want to kind of let them be my mentor. And what I mean by that is don't sit there and look at them and go, hey, I have a paper. Can you sign this and become my mentor? No, but just ask them, like, hey, how did you end up like this? Like, what is it that you do? And see what you can glean. They become your mentor. Now, you're like, hey, listen, I'm kind of nervous around people. That's not my thing, is like going up to people and talking to people. I get that. So here's a big suggestion. Pick a digital mentor. Yes, this is a little weird, but you could do this. You can go on YouTube, online, and look for Christian influencers or people that you admire. Let's say somebody, maybe a pastor, not necessarily a log church pastor, somebody that teaches on a subject or an expert in an area that teaches something like a Dave Ramsey, or somebody that's like a godly person that's teaching in a certain area, maybe somebody with regard to their health. There's a lot of Christian fitness people. There's people like that. They can become your digital mentor. You can just watch their YouTube videos and kind of say, okay, well, this is kind of the advice my father might have given me if he did this, and you become mentored by them from a distance. This is really, really important. There are people that have written books, and I'll give you some other ones, like long-distance mentors, like John Acuff. I probably quoted John Acuff 1,000 times. I consider him a mentor. I've only talked to him maybe a half a dozen times, but I've read his stuff, I've taken his courses, I've done a lot of development with him, and I'll take what he says, and I'll try to apply what he says and learn it as if I was a son. Like I'm trying to adapt those things. So I want to encourage you to pick a mentor. Keep in mind in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20, it says, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. When you are looking for wisdom, God will give you wisdom through other people. You just have to be willing to look. So a way to confront the father wound is by finding someone else that's doing something well.